Njormann is beset by the Nothics, and he remembers what they were searching for, the knowledge that they had held in their hands. He reaches into his pack, pulling out some of his old books that he found in the local village. He tosses them to the left and the right into the corners, and the Nothics dart after them, eager for their knowledge. He comes to a strange doorway, nothing like that he's ever seen before. It opens up, and striding through is a creature, gaunt, humanoid, its mouth long and descended and its eyes just fallow holes. It walks forward with its kind of clawed feet, and he can feel its presence, its aura of darkness. And just as it steps past the threshold...
Before Njormann has time to react, he notices a shimmer in the wall as a kind of rock-like claw works its way through. Not making any noise or disturbing the surface. It's then followed by a single reptilian eye, teeth flank upon the top of the eye, over the top of the creature actually, as the tripoded form works its way through the wall, leaving it completely undamaged as a Xorn enters the room.
And my horrible monster was a Bodak.
Oh, wow, Bodak and Xorn. Now, this is quite the duo.
It's a Saturday morning TV show.
It's Bodak and Xorn. Hi everyone, welcome to the excellent show Challenge Raters, where we three have a little chat about a D&D monster. In this case, we're going to have a chat about two while I illustrate it. My name's Theo.
I'm Neil, social media manager.
And I'm Sam.
And also, we do give it a rating out of 20, which is very important.
Very important.
You need to stick around to the end of the video to hear our important opinions on the number.
Anything below 3, don't even bother using, kid.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, that's the rule.
Noparibo, I think, is down there, and Svart, I think, are the two. But yeah, okay, so I know both of these monsters. I had no idea where either of these descriptions was going, so I
kind of got... the Xorn is a very strange creature, so I kind of got lost in myself trying to describe it.
There's a lot of things to it.
I love the Xorn.
It's great.
I think let's start with the Bodak, because I'll start drawing him first. And I think the Bodak is slightly simpler. I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's archetypical, creepy, eldritch, undeathy look.
His face is quite alien.
Yes, that's why I liked him in this scenario, because he rather explicitly in their description, reading through it, is all about how they're transformed by Orcus. Much like a lot of powerful undead, it's all related to the demon of undead. Most liches, if you read about them in some way, revere Orcus in different ways. So using his powers and his gifts is not beyond the power of a lich. Or something else similar to that, like powerful necromancers. The thing about a Bodak is that they're really mean just because of how their presence.
Okay.
Most of their abilities are about them just looking at you.
Okay, cool.
Just to say, they have an aura and a gaze.
Oh, okay, right. And is it one of those gazes that they have to use an action to do, or is it just if you're looking at it, as it were?
They have an action and one that is just them looking at you.
Okay, right.
So it's all just about them looking at you. They do have a fist attack, but let's not even bother.
Yeah, you're not...
Hey, that 1d4 plus 2. It's 2d8 necrotic, actually, but anyway, no.
2d8, ooh.
It's good.
They basically all have an open chest wound in the shape of Orcus, as they basically lose their heart. And they're known to seek out their loved ones and their enemies to just basically kill all the remnants of their old lives.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah. It's again, much like what we talked about a few weeks ago now, the slithering tracker, how it's something in the usual law, it's something about that somebody's maybe done willingly or had done to them in the same kind of way. Evil cultists doing evil things for the source of their power from their god. And one thing I wanted to kind of talk about is definitely something in D&D, which is kind of the point of this whole show as well, is that so much about a monster is in these little pictures in the monster manual, that just capture your imagination when you look at them.
Totally.
The amount of times I bet you two do the same, as having both DM'd, where a monster's lore won't fit exactly what you want it to do.
Yeah.
But its picture does.
Right, I get you. Yeah.
Looking at a monster and going like, that's what I want right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the exact feeling I'm going for. All this text is great for when you're rolling, your character, your dungeons, using that as inspiration for more things.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
I mean, when you look at the Bodak, he's straight out of Bloodborne.
Yeah.
He's very Bloodborne-y. Again, like, he does have this kind of freaky alien thing to him as well. But also, you could kind of take that in a more, like, gothic horror. Like, he has the scream
Yeah.
for his
Yeah,
face,
yeah, yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
the painting. So I think it could go either way, definitely.
He has a big, long stat book, but I think we'll maybe describe the Xorn a bit before we get into that.
If we're talking about the image giving you a look of what you want compared to the text, I think the Xorn is like the opposite.
Yeah.
When you look at it, this is like something that you're like, this is some horrendous abomination that I want to kill. When actually, he's mostly just a hungry boy that doesn't really want to use violence ever, but only does it when he's forced to. So that's basically what he comes from, because
They're an elemental, aren't they?
They are.
Right?
The elemental power of earth, so they can glide. Their big thing is they can glide through stone and dirt as easily as a fish swims through water.
Okay. I like it.
They prefer to not leave their home plane, actually, because that's where like there's a load of their food.
Sure, okay. They get a lot of rocks from there.
It does say that basically a Xorn would end up in the material plane through accident or just curiosity, but generally once they're here, they're looking for food and a way back home.
Okay, sure. I get you.
They're a neutral alignment creature. They are driven by those two things. So they usually ignore most creatures on the material plane because they're organic, don't serve any purpose.
Right.
They like precious metals and stones, which means they'll often come into contact with a party because parties tend to have a lot of gold on them.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's true.
that is a reason why they end up, because they can sense. They have treasure
Precious
sense
stuff.
Yeah, they have treasure sense, so they can sense precious metals or stones, such as coins or gems, within 60 feet of it. Yeah.
I love treasure sense because it sounds so much like tremor sense. It's
Yeah.
so hard, like,
Yeah.
treasure sense.
But
Favorite.
it does say that
That'd be a great thing to give, like, a magic item to a PC.
it does explicitly state that because Xorn aren't evil, they will plead or bargain in the hope of convincing people to give them their treasure, maybe offering information that it's learned in its travels.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of cool.
Zorn are great.
It's very odd.
Zorn are really good. I really like Zorn.
I guess one of the main issues with that is they only speak Terran.
Right.
So
Yes.
if this rock creature can't like starts like striking towards you with these big jagged teeth and is garbling at your party in a language it doesn't understand,
Yeah.
they're the most misunderstood characters in D&D. That's my hot take.
It's that Rick and Morty monster that just does. He holds out its hand. So one thing we thought is that with the strange doorway, they seek out kind of precious stones and metals.
Yeah.
So it could have been drawn by this strange construction. May not be familiar with them. Could be tasty.
Or it could have been
Yeah.
it could have been drawn here by Norman himself.
Norman's got
You
some,
wouldn't-
he's got a magic belt. He's got that belt of mankind. Now that's a powerful belt. He's
Maybe
gonna ask him for
maybe
it.
Zorn's going to ask him for the belt.
Made out of pure manium.
I think if a Xorn comes in the middle of a big fight and it's like, go give me your gold, you're like, I'm kind of busy right now, but if you help us, then sure.
Give me your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Please, I'm so hungry. I think that could be very funny. That could be like. That's a Deus Ex Machina, obviously, if you're trying to save them by giving them an ally, but also it would be a very funny one. And I think in D&D, a good Deus Ex Machina is a funny one, or
Yeah.
at least like an entertaining one.
I think there's a lot of fertile ground for a fun Zorn encounter.
Yeah.
It does stress it more often than pretty much any of the monsters in the monster manual that it doesn't really want to fight you. It only does it when it's like being threatened or if it's starving or angered, which usually means that the players have done something to annoy it.
You see, it would have arrived here, and potentially for any of these reasons that we talked about, and it would have immediately been attacked by the Bodak's auras.
That's true, yeah.
So it's already angered. It's like,
Yeah. As it arrived, any creature that ends its turn within 30 feet of the Bodak takes 5 necrotic damage.
Oh.
Just 5, just like straight down there immediately. Right. Pretty nasty. What challenge rating is it?
A Bodak is a 6.
Okay, so that's pretty high. For like an undead, just like guy who's not a lich or a superintendent. I think it kind of jumps from 6th to like 10th, a lot of the undead.
Bodaks are like... I think that the way that they're kind of written is almost like they're head of a cult. Not but not actual leader of a cult, almost like, the blessed
Like
of a
a
cult.
branch.
Yeah.
If there's an Orcus cult in a city, they might have a Bodak in like the inner sanctum.
Exactly.
Who's directing?
Because
I can get behind that.
apparently Orcus can, if he chooses to, speak through them.
Wow. Okay.
So kind of
That's-
mouth of
that's-
Sauron scenario.
There's not a lot of things in the book that will straight up say, or because this is from Volo's,
They're from Volos, yeah.
They also often say like, oh, they worship this god, or like they're associated with this, but like they're not usually gonna say, and by the way, this god can talk through them and is aware of what's going on with them and stuff like that. That doesn't come up a lot, I feel. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and I love... The Xorn is, like, designed for it when you look at him, because his mouth is right on top of his dumb head. So him raising out of the ground underneath someone is just so funny.
Yeah, definitely. Does he have... what are his abilities beyond his treasure sense? Does he have anything
So
exciting?
his, I mean, not massively, to be quite honest. So he has Earthglide, I mean, which is his main, pretty unique, cool thing, being able to, go through rock or stone.
Yeah, and it would make it very difficult to fight if depending on what you're.
He can just peace out. He's
not fast. He's not fast. That's his
No.
Okay.
with it.
Speed 20,
Yeah.
borrow feet 20, because he's weirdly legged.
Yeah, well, he's got a whole mess of legs down there.
He has advantage on stealth checks, and he can sense treasure, and that really makes up all of his unique abilities. And then he has multi-attack, which he can make 3 claw attacks and 1 bite a turn.
Okay.
Which is
That's
4
okay, so
attacks.
3 attacks. I feel like that's a lot.
Yeah.
It is. They're
Fair
not
for
weak.
It's loads.
They're not weak. Like, for jumping out and doing these things, I think a conjure element spell, I think when it's upcast, can summon one.
That'd be a really fun summon, because a lot of the elementals they're cool, but they don't have as much character as this is already like showing. I think so that would be a cool thing to summon.
Whenever I've had them, because I've DM'd them a couple of times, ran them.
Sure.
I always have them as they come at the ground. They're always spinning.
Okay, sure. Like they borrow like a drill.
Yeah. And then when they come out, when they walk forward, they have kind of a slow spin to them, whereas they kind of like have to move each leg kind of round one at a time that turns them. And they're trying to I always have an eye on the front and an eye on the back. So they have one eye on you, and as they're turning, the other eye looks around you.
Snaps in and then...
Yeah. It makes them so alien, because they're not from Earth.
It really demonstrates how this is not like typical existence for them.
Temptation, and I don't think it's wrong at all, would be for this to be kind of bumbling and amusing in a way. But I think if you, with the plain stuff, you could play up the alien nature of it a lot, and I think depending on like the tone of your campaign, that could be very interesting and very cool and quite different too.
Speaking of aliens, the Bodak.
So he's got this aura where he takes 5 damage.
Yeah, and he can turn it on and off as a bonus.
Is it only enemies or is it on?
It says
everything?
any creature that's not an undead or fiend.
Okay, so it's going to be mostly undead.
Yeah.
Minions potentially. Oh, but I guess if it's like a cult, maybe not though, right?
Maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe you can't approach the Bodak on his throne in the cult.
Only the faithful.
Yes, only the chosen may approach, and then they become undead, like raised as a wight or something. That could be cool.
So when a creature that can see a Bodak starts its turn there 30 feet, the Bodak can force it to make a Constitution saving throw. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more...
that means it's going to be instantly death.
The creature is reduced to 0 hit points.
Yeah, okay.
Unless it's immune to being frightened.
Okay.
Otherwise, a creature takes 16 (3d10) psychic damage off that.
Oh, that's a lot.
That's a bad time.
I feel like that is on the high end of a CR6 creature.
Wow. Well, 5 or more. 5 or more is an 8.
Right.
It's not. I mean,
on your Constitution.
If that gets set, there are certain characters that don't put into con.
It's a 50-50 shot, honestly, for a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Well,
and I guess 0 HP isn't I think is the Banshee's similar thing, isn't it? We obviously that just reduces to 0 as well. I don't think there's anything that at that level which will actually straight up kill you, unless a ghost ages you beyond your natural lifespan and you die.
And at this level, some of the petrificating creatures is as good as dead.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I think this would be a really cool thing to use, low level, as a very intimidating thing. It might be risky to use it if you use it directly as it says, just because the chances of killing someone accidentally is very high.
I don't think this creature ever throws a punch either. I think...
Then why would you ever?
Yeah.
Unless you're using it as, a minion, but at that point,
because it does have a punch, 1d4
got
plus
one.
2, and 2d8 necrotic, but why would you?
Yeah, definitely.
You have a gaze action. You'd
Yes.
take that, surely.
Yeah, there's a
Sure,
cool
sure.
gaze, which is just like it directs its gaze 60 feet range, DC 13 concentration throw, and then you take 4d10 necrotic on a failed save. So it has a 4d10 DC 13 check just at range looking at you,
Right.
which is quite
Is
a
it-
bit.
What's its HP looking like?
It's quite
Because I
low.
imagine that. Yeah, because I imagine the Xorn, for example, is quite a lot, but
58.
What's the Xorn?
yeah.
The Xorn is 73, but it has an armor class of 19.
Yeah, he's a tanky
Okay, because I
boy.
was say 73. That's not especially high, but high AC is pretty scary.
Oh, and
stuff.
obviously resistance to all non-magic damage, but I
there you go,
assume.
Well, no, the Xorn is interesting with that. There's an extra line on the resistance.
Oh yeah, of course there is. Yeah, it is affected by the adamantine.
Oh, cool.
Obviously, it's made of rock. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's something we always talk about. Is we want more of that to be important in D&D games. It's like
Yes.
I really want somebody having an adamantine weapon to be important.
Especially like if you get one, it's like, oh, cool, and then there's never an opportunity to use that. Like that's a shame.
Yeah,
Look at you, Sam. I'm trying my best, but we'll see. But yeah,
So I'd use it on every door.
yeah. Don't worry. Do either of them have any other like actions that we should cover?
yeah. There's two more things about the Bodak I want to
Oh
touch.
wow. Okay. Wow. Sure.
One of them's described in the fluffy section about the monster's lore, and the other one is a more extreme version of an ability that we're probably quite familiar with. The Bodak has sunlight hypersensitivity.
Okay. Sure.
It takes 5 radiant damage when in sunlight.
Wow. Okay. Because you obviously there's a lot of things with sunlight sensitivity, which is like they
Get the disadvantage.
Yeah.
disadvantage with lots with perception
rolls.
usually and attack rolls if it's like the slightly more extreme ones. Yeah. So yeah, hypersensitive. That's cool. That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, and they have.
And
the
again,
normal
like
disadvantage.
the idea of using it in a city setting as like a cult leader, then is, it can't go out during the day kind of thing. Obviously, it probably doesn't go out at all, but they can't move it during the day. For
If
example,
you can
which would be
contrive a
interesting.
way to get it outside.
Yeah.
Or at night,
Very
it
cool.
could terrorize the town.
Yeah.
The Gangle Man who walks the streets and all who gaze upon him die. The next thing about it is fluff. It's nowhere in its stat block, but it says that the soul is basically completely gone from a Bodak. It's completely ravaged. You can't resurrect them unless through wish.
Wow. Okay. And this again, like not high level, but you're not gonna have wish probably if you're fighting.
You ain't
with these,
revivifying
unless
this boy.
it's a minion of something greater. Like this could obviously be something that commands a large number of low level things in like a lich's lair.
Yeah,
Obviously.
yeah, exactly. They also do have a description here about how Orcus's main servants, as in his powerful ones, are incredibly powerful Bodaks that are all each one as powerful as a Baylor. It says that, yeah.
Excuse me.
It says that his main servants are all Bodaks that are as powerful as Baylors, and there's no stat block for this, but it says in here that their gazes turn people that fail the save into Bodaks.
Ugh.
Wow, I kind of need that stat block.
I want that stat block.
Why is that not in there? Come on, wizards, what are you
Might be
doing?
Mordekainen's, honestly, but I doubt it.
Give me a superior Bodak.
I need the Bodak. I need the
Bodak
Ultra
Prime.
Yeah, that's very cool. So their lore is that
They're undead that kind of pledge themselves to Orcus. They have their hearts almost kind of removed and replaced with a symbol of Orcus.
and then they destroy their former lives themselves.
Yeah.
Very, very comfortable. Because the Southern Tracker is tragic. I think
Yeah.
this is much more.
The Sim Tracker has a bit
evil.
more of like desperation to it potentially, or like rage.
Yeah,
Whereas this one
what has driven them to this?
pretty
this
premedicated,
decision.
and
We're
yeah, they
focused
are
on the
happy.
character, yeah.
That leans itself into a thing that there's like a string of murders, and you've got to try and work out what links them together.
What connects?
And it connects them to this one guy, and then the guy's a Bodak.
And he's gone missing or
Yeah.
something, or like, he died ages ago. It's like, oh, unrelated, or was it? Dun, dun, dun.
I mean,
That could be cool.
you could do something funny of, we always tie into, we love the idea of ghosts giving quests. Imagine a ghost describing how he died seeing a Bodak.
I think that describing a Bodak as you did it, because I didn't know what you're talking about. I've seen the Bodak a lot, but
they're horrible.
describing it is a really horrible looking creature from its base design. So I think that's it.
They did a good job on the art on that one. It is pretty horrifying.
I'm not doing a great job on this Xorn, I'm not gonna lie, but we'll get
I'm
there.
into
It's gonna
it.
be
I'm
something.
into it, really. I feel like he's about to double rock bottom off the top ropes.
He's coming through the wall. I put him behind these rocks. He's just popping through. My gosh. Anyway,
And I should
it's
mention,
fine.
just for posterity's sake, that it specifically says, which is always helpful to say, that a creature can avert its gaze from a Bodak. It doesn't have to look at them.
Sure. And I think the issue with these ones is, like, whether people understand how that works in the moment. Like, if they can understand, oh, I need to avert my gaze.
Yeah.
Because I think in previous editions, like the Medusa, it has to look at you actively to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's if you're looking at it, because facing isn't a thing now. So it's assumed that it can be looking at everyone around it in its turn, because it's like changing its direction, essentially.
It can still do its action, though, one without you looking, though, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and there's that
Its action one is more active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, that is one that, I don't know how I'd probably just tell them that they can look away.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with
if they start floundering about it, or don't come to that conclusion or understand it, I think I'd just make it pretty.
I think making sure that people know what options are
Yeah.
available to them, especially because
it's not something that comes up super often. I know, like
With the Bodak,
Yeah.
we want to set it up. That's the thing. What we were just talking about was the cult leader. We can have all the rumours of don't gaze upon when you're not the faithful, the eyes of the Bodak. And, you can set that all up, and then you could have the things of, like, you could just go through the fight, and then some player might think, like, oh, I'm not going to look at him because you keep describing how looking at him is hurting you. Right?
Yeah.
It's a bit different to, like, the Basilisk, I feel, which is like, oh, make a save, oh, make a save, oh, make a save.
Yeah. It's just you take the damage.
Yeah, it's physically damage, which I feel is more comprehensible to people than just making a save that then you don't pass and then sometimes you turn to stone.
Yeah.
And once
I
you've
get
fought
you.
one of these enemies, you know how they work.
you know the deal. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big question with the Bodak is: are you using it as a low level boss, or are you using it as a high level minion?
I think it's as good as both. You could have like two of them in like a lich fight,
Definitely,
like
and
flanking
then,
him.
And then if you want to really go into it, having it described and the horror of it and the horror of its inherent story, if you do choose to use the law, it would be very cool at a low level, really cool. Kind of like the Oni. Is what making me think of, like, again, like using that as a low level boss, if you set it up well, could be really, really cool.
My campaign is revolving around a lich, and I'm kind of like building up like him kind of having like lieutenants.
Sure.
That's a pretty like arbitrary way of describing it, but people that are like serving him. The party have already met and dealt with one, and I'm thinking
Cool.
I think a Bodak would be a pretty cool.
The strings of the
Other
master.
100%. Yeah.
It's annoying that they don't have that strong. Maybe a Balor is a lot. It'd be cool if there's a stronger variant, maybe like a 10th level variant of this. I think could be.
I feel that
be
you
cool,
could
as with all things.
almost kit out an Orcus army with just different Bodaks.
Give it magic items, of course, as well. It's an intelligent thing. And a Xorn as well. We've not talked too much about the Xorn. The Xorn, I suppose, you don't really want to be fighting the Xorn, right? Like, even if you're like an evil party, like the Xorn is just a. It's a guy you can get info out of. He's a guy you can make a deal with.
But if you're an evil party, he is going to be asking for your stuff.
He's asking for your stuff.
I've had the Xorn show up to eat people's treasure.
Yeah.
Sure, that is true. Yeah, if he just comes in and takes a bite out of your stuff while you're sleeping.
He is unfortunately coming in between, what
your money.
The
true.
The party of dragons that most player characters are of hoarding their wealth. He directly attacks that, which is like a pretty dangerous thing to do if you want to keep it alive.
That is true.
I had the party discover a long abandoned temple, and they went through all this effort to unseal it, and they went inside the first room, and there was 3 Xorn in there, just grabbing everything, shoving all the treasure into their mouths. And they all kind of looked at the party and all just ran away into the walls.
I miss the elemental plane.
And then they all just ran away into the walls as soon as the party saw them.
That's very funny.
And then they kept on trying to come back out and eat their treasure.
There's a lot of elementals that I think are harder to just sort of put in the material plane, because a lot of them was like, what does this do, day to day? Like, I think the flail snail's an easy one because it's basically just an animal. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
But this one has a story for being in the material plane, in that it wants to get back because it's hungry to eat Earth, and there's not enough good stuff here in the material plane.
Not enough fancy gems.
Not enough cool gems for it. So I think that's a story for it already.
I also feel that if potentially you're telling a story with like stone genies, Dao,
Definitely.
a monster that is an elemental that also knows about treasure is immediately like a genie minion. There you go.
Definitely. Oh, the Bodak's probably large. I mean, the Xorn's probably large, right?
It's medium.
Oh, it's only medium. Oh, perfect. I didn't draw it too big. I mean, it's pretty big, but it's
I should have probably clarified that earlier. Yeah, no, it's only a medium.
It's all right. I'm gonna give it abs for no good reason.
Nice.
Obviously what I've drawn for the Bodak is a little bit more alien-y than the normal one. I was kind of going for like a kind of ET, extraterrestrial. The thing about Orcus being able to see through it, like obviously if you're going for the base thing, I would say that's kind of hard to use depending on what you're doing. Obviously the higher level the thing you're doing, the more you probably thought about how the gods will interact, or gods or demons, whoever will interact. But there's no reason if you're using this in a mildly different way, I wouldn't get rid of the something else can speak through it thing. Because looking at it, it doesn't really look intelligent. It doesn't necessarily look stupid.
7
But exactly, so having something else speak through it clearly, and maybe its mouth not even moving, just like the sound echoing out of its like this like abyss that it has for a mouth, could be very spooky. And like, you know, maybe having I'm trying to think, maybe it could be used for, you could use it as like a psychic creature's minion.
Definitely.
I think could be cool.
Along the lines of like using it as a speaking mouth. There's always the possibility of evil warlock characters, because these guys don't attack other worshippers of Orcus, stuff like that in their lore. So if maybe you're some kind of fiendish warlock potentially tied to Orcus, having a Bodak communicate with you or seek you out and then go... Or just that...
Or if you're like a necromancer.
Yeah.
Like the wizard necromancer.
Just that moment maybe where the Bodak does not face its wrath against you in a fight, and it's because you're, chosen of whatever.
Yeah.
And I've had one in my game. I have a warlock who is of the Raven Queen, vaguely death stuff, and basically the Orcus guy talked through him and tried to turn him to Orcus.
Right.
Orcus was a better fit for him and his gifts. It was pretty good. It was pretty good, but also, I mean, he's not exactly a brilliant salesman with how he looks.
No, it's like, I don't really trust this guy. I will say, like, if you're going for something very traditional, undeady, villainy thing, the Bodak might be a little too, like, over the top to fit in. Like, he's not gonna... He looks so different to a lot of the other undead things that if he's mixed in there, it's gonna be like, whoa, what the hell? Like, this guy wouldn't be hanging out with a bunch of skeletons.
No.
But maybe with like some monstrosities and aberrations, I think it would fit in very, very well. If you wanted to mix things up a little bit, no problems there.
A dark menagerie, kind of.
Yeah.
I want to say, Sam, on our behalf, intentionally, in a campaign where you may use a slithering tracker.
Yeah.
And other undead like that.
You know what? Yeah, that is true. I think that they're a good fit together. We're talking some of the freaky undead. We're talking about a guy who maybe is experimenting with undead. He's not he ain't just raising a skeleton with that like second level spell or whatever it is.
No, they're going in with like soul power shenanigans.
Experiments, I can almost see the test tube.
he's fresh out of it, this guy. I like as well. I just thought it's a very silly idea for us all. If you have like, for example, there's the genie warlock now. If you had a genie warlock who was like the Dao as his like patron, a Xorn like popping out of the ground at random points to like deliver messages.
Oh, that'd be awesome!
That'd be so good.
I love it.
I'm just here to deliver a message. Keep up the good. And then if you because it's not in it anymore. Hey, spoilers for the episode of Unearthed Arcana when we talk about the new genie.
Oh,
wow, this video is not going to be out for like months though. Anyway, they got rid of the ability where you can give money to get spells, but if you wanted to keep that, you just pour the gold into the Xorn's head.
A Xorn shows up like a toilet from the ground and you just dump a treasure.
I mean, it's gross, but yeah, it's exactly what I'm describing, so sure. Yeah. And you just pour the gold in and then you get your stuff.
And
I like it.
the non-verbal aspect of communication with the Xorn, because the Xorn would realise he can't communicate. So a Xorn leaning his head over and then just with his big finger pointing at your loot and then at his mouth, just back and forth.
Yeah, pointed like, and then like Mabry with the other hand trying to offer something else. It's like,
what would a Xorn think humanoids want?
Food. Like, here's a corpse.
Yeah, it's a dead rat.
Here's organic material, you eat this.
Delicious.
Here is comfort, he's holding a pillow.
Or, maybe digging them a tunnel to, through a secret entrance into a dungeon. That could be cool. That could be a good way. Could be an interesting little thing.
I've seen lots of adventurers walking around wearing these clothes. So here's some, and it's just tattered ribbons of a curve.
Yeah, it's like,
I think then finally be able to talk to the Xorn, and him talking to him and feeling that these random things he keeps bringing you, because you could have it in an adventure where he just keeps bringing random stuff and then you don't like it and he just leaves, right? And then he keeps coming back. And then
he's a trader.
He's just trying to find what you want.
Yeah. I think it could be very fun. Oh, gosh.
I don't think you can have him on the surface, though, obviously.
Not really. I mean, you want him in a cave. Maybe Underdark probably works pretty well for either of these things, actually. I don't think we've mentioned the Underdark in this particular case, but a Xorn just sort of out and about would be very odd.
Yeah.
But maybe. Especially if you do have, a lot of, maybe, the flail snails and some other, earth elementals around. It could just be,
You could make the setting.
Yeah.
Make it not seem as weird.
If it's a flail snail, area, region.
Flail snail country.
Yeah, if it's flail snail.
And then this guy's going on eating the glass.
Yeah.
He thinks it's delicious.
Well, he may just eat the same food as the flail snails.
That's true,
you see this guy, a flail snail, peacefully eating away at a gemstone. This guy comes out and just uppercuts a snail and just starts eating the stone.
What's the int on the Xorn? What's its intelligence
11
looking like? Okay, so
smarter than the Bodak.
It's way smarter than this Bodak. This Bodak's gonna go whoa. What's Mr. Burns say when he's an alien?
That's literally what I was thinking about.
I bring you love.
He brings love.
He brings love. Break his legs. Remember The Simpsons? Anyway, I like the idea of it. I like both these a lot, actually. The Bodak, I think, is it harder to use? Probably not. I think
narrower.
Certainly narrower. I don't think the Bodak is something that you can just throw in. You look at the Bodak and you go, "That's cool. How do I use it?" You don't go, "Oh, what do I need? I need this. Where is that? Oh, the Bodak. That's what that is." You make something because you like the Bodak, I think.
This is why I was talking about the art of it at the beginning, because I reached for Bodak before I even read the lore when I first used them, just because of how they look. They look so intimidating and horrible.
You know you're going to have a bad time when you see him.
With the Xorn, I feel that you can use them as a control paste for Earth Elemental, if you want to.
Yeah.
Definitely. And again, sometimes it's cool to have something that you're not gonna fight, but it has it has a lot of personality on its own, and it's not gonna immediately fight you. You could definitely make it fight you just because, okay, well, I really want to eat your stuff, and you've refused all my offers, so I'm just gonna take something off of you and try to eat it. It could be cool, but
and if you really want, I don't think you could feel reticent about just having it as an enemy, just a Xorn ambush.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe this one Xorn's figured out that humanoids don't seem to understand how to barter. It's better if I just attack.
Or maybe it just thinks everyone who's not in a town is probably a bandit. They're probably evil. I don't care.
I just don't care. Yeah.
Adventurers aren't exactly, upstanding citizens.
Paragons of virtue.
Maybe he saw an adventurer kill an elemental.
And I think I believe the Dao themselves are not good. I think they're one of the evil ones. Yeah. So yeah. I don't think you'd be against. There'd be anything wrong using the Xorn as just an enemy.
I mean, look at it. You can use it as an enemy.
Use an enemy, and the Earthclaw stuff is cool.
Yeah.
I think it's more. Surprisingly, I think this is a more versatile creature than the Bodak.
I guess just one really small thing, just because I know we talked about it before, and it's not in the book, but in the book, but just looking at it quickly. I remember when we talked about the T-Rex and how it has to attack in different.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, this has 3 claw attacks. It has 3 claws sticking out at opposite angles of its body.
Yeah.
So you can have it clawing it, standing in the middle of people, just kind of spinning.
It's like a blender. It's very much. There's that Dark Souls 1 enemy, the demon
the
demon ruins. That I think is basically just a Xorn, not the tentacles.
Shall we give them a number?
I think a number is just what these two things need.
I was just imagining a Xorn kicking someone, and that was hilarious to me.
Oh god, Jesus!
It goes to kick someone, then falls over because it loses
Exactly.
its sense of balance.
I like both these creatures quite a lot.
Yeah.
I'm now thinking, how do I want to like try and use these myself? And I there's a couple of ways, but I don't really know where to place them. Again, like last time, I feel unsure.
Xorn's interesting. Is it more interesting than Earth Elemental? Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as like fun as the flail snail, but also it's probably more usable than the flail
Do you
snail.
remember what we rated first now?
No.
It wasn't super high. It was like 12.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't feel wrong giving this guy like the Xorn like a 13 to 14.
Yeah, I prefer the flail snail personally.
The flail snail has a look. Maybe just 12 as well. Then maybe they balance out.
I think 12.
Yeah. I'm
He's-
fine with 12.
He's
Sounds
60th percentile.
Yeah.
I think 60th percentile sounds about right for him.
He's a cool lad. And the other thing is like I don't think you need to change much if you just take like the base thing out of it.
No.
Like if you just use it as it is.
It's good.
Especially if you use its lore, like it's fun and it's not like really complicated. You don't need to know like a bunch of like gods' names to be able to RP as this guy. You need to go, I want to eat your gold, and that'll do it.
And if you're using him in a fight with his burrow, because it's only 20 feet,
Yeah,
him coming out, attacking, and then going back down, he then kind of has to like, if you want him to move around, he has to sit under there for like a round.
Sure, yeah.
And so it can kind of lead to these very weird fights where the enemy comes
Where you
out,
don't do anything.
punches, and then he leaves.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is weird. D&D players don't like it when the dragon doesn't land. They don't like
Yeah,
it.
it's like it's just flying. It's like, well, yeah, it's gonna fly into wait for its fire breath to recharge and then hit you again. Like it doesn't need to help. Again, it's one of those things where playing tactically or role play, it's fighting, of course. But yeah, the Bodak though. Do I prefer the Bodak to the Xorn? I think it's probably more interesting.
Yeah.
Like both from a story and a combat perspective. Obviously, the part of the Xorn's thing is that it's not necessarily like completely a combat thing, so maybe that's why. But yeah, I think the Bodak is a pretty cool dude for sure.
I dig its vibe. That's
For
my
sure.
technical analysis of it.
Love how alien it looks. Let's compare it to some of the other undead, because I think like Ghoul we gave like 13, right?
Yeah, it's got to be higher than Ghoul.
I think
I really liked Ghoul, but I think it's higher than Ghoul. And Urban Ghoul Bodak.
Just
thing.
I think Urban Ghoul is totally part of the Orcus cult in a city campaign.
Yeah, totally.
He was left out to die.
I feel that it's
He's,
all the
he's
same
managed
campaign
to
as
survive.
Phantom of the Nothic.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I was trying to remember what the other one was.
It's all this campaign of like people turned into stuff.
Yeah, there's been a big theme of that in this.
What is that one city called? We need to figure that out someday. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's not as funky as the Death Knight.
No.
Because the Death Knight's awesome because of how strong it is and how iconic it is.
Do we give it a 14 then?
I was thinking maybe even a 15 because I really like it.
75%. Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah.
Because that puts it higher than a lot of the. Because
The
remember
good,
we
the
did
good stuff where we put a lot of things 13,
we did
40.
the gargantuan things. There's a lot of things that are 14 that I think are not as cool as this.
Yeah, fair.
And I'm surprised by that. I wouldn't necessarily have thought that going into this.
And I've got to admit, like, at least 10 of those points is just how good a design it has by default.
Really cool design, but also just like it's it's a dangerous creature. There's
Yeah.
not loads of creatures that are actually really dangerous.
Yeah, I'm in on you. Oh, it has immunity to lightning for some reason. Just to put that out there.
I guess you could maybe you could use something like a flesh golem, like in like the same area as a flesh golem, even potentially, because some things are just immune to lightning, like the shambling mound and this, and I don't know why. Anyway, so yeah, I think 15 and what would you say? The other guy 12, right? 15 and 12, I think is pretty good.
Yeah,
I like
I'm
those
happy
numbers.
for both of those numbers feel right to me. You know what? I had a ropey start to this drawing. I had to restart it a couple of times, but I'm actually pretty happy where we've ended up.
I love the door.
Yeah, the doors will win.
Door's the most important character in this picture, and that's probably not even completely a falsehood. So yeah,
I love the Zorn's got double rock bottom on him. Just
I definitely think what happens next is the Zorn's like, hey. By the way, he's looking at Norman, like he's ignoring this thing between them, like going and walking down between. It's like, hey, you got any treasure? And I think Norman's gonna make a deal, like, hey, you deal with this dude, and I'll give you whatever you want. So I think the Xorn's gonna scoop this guy up and probably just chuck him over the edge of this cliff that's on the edge here. I'm pretty sure that's what happens next. Well, maybe the Bodak's he's about to say something through his mouth. The voice of its master is about to speak through it, and then the Xorn breaks its neck. Walks it by and crushes it.
Listen carefully, I'll say this only once.
Turn back. Just crushed. That'd be very funny.
I speak for the great Lord.
I think you know what time it is. I think it's time for some really good jokes about these two great creatures.
Sometimes I Bodak and forth about whether or not this section's any good, and I think you should leave a comment on whether or not you think it's any good in the comment section.
Excellent.
I was going to try and do something about like Scorn and Xorn in the comments, but you've taken comments off me.
I'm sorry, apology.
Treasure sense? Is there anything in treasure sense?
Yeah, I think there's something in there.
If your treasure sense is tingling from looking at this video, give it a like.
Love it.
If you desire to eat this video because you're an Earth Elemental,
put it on a thumb drive.
Put it on a thumb drive. Swallow it whole. Don't do that. The challenge rate is challenge. Eat your thumb drive with this video.
Your thumb drive with the Xorn video.
Horrendous.
Oh, Sam just turned into a Bodak and he's speaking through Orcus. What you say? What does Orcus say, Sam?
Subscribe to PewDiePie. Oh no, I mean
no, Orcus. You all turn to
Oh
you, Orcus. I think that must be the end of the video, because I'm looking at the end. Here it comes. Oh Jesus, it's coming.